Well, hello, boys and girls. It's Mrs. Kohli. Today, we're going to be studying a very interesting concept about animal adaptations. Not only animals, but plants also, because both of those species have to know how to adapt in order to stay alive. So, let's jump into our lesson. The first animal we're going to talk about, we're specifically going to talk about desert plants and desert animals. So be thinking about some of your background knowledge. Maybe you've personally studied about plants or animals that live in the desert regions, or maybe your teachers read you information about those type of species, because you're going to want to use that as we answer these questions today. Today, I've decided to share with you information about camels. Okay, so think about, where have you seen camels? Probably at your local zoo, or maybe in books or on the Discovery Channel, studying places like Egypt in the Middle East. Okay, so camels are mammals that have long, thin legs. They also have either one or two humps on their backs. Camels that have one hump live in the desert. They grow to be about 7 feet tall, and they often live for 40 or 50 years. So if you had a pet camel, you wouldn't have to worry for a while before you'd have to worry about losing your animal due to old age, huh? So the next question I have is, why do camels have humps? Before you look at the information and to answer that question, I want you to just think about that. Why would they have humps? What is the purpose of a hump? Maybe share that information with your neighbor, please. Okay, now let's find out why. Camels can live for 2 months with no water. This is one reason why a camel has a hump. Many people think that camels have water in their humps. This is not true. The humps are made of fat. The fat gives the camel what it needs to live in the desert. So are the humps filled with water? I know when I was a little girl, I thought that that was the case. But no, they're not. They're fat. It's a reserve supply of fat to help them survive for the 2 months that they go without water. The fat gives the camel what it needs to live in the desert. Interesting fact. Okay, next, let's read over this story about camels and see if we can gather some more information together. It said that camels live in the deserts of Africa and Asia. They may have one or two humps. Some people think that they hold water in their humps, but we found out just a few minutes ago. But they do not store water, they store fat. A camel can go without water for a long time. How long did we find out on our last slide? 2 months, huh? And it eats most anything it finds in the desert. Leaves, thorns, and bushes are always good snacks. A mother camel will have a calf about every 2 years. She is a good mom and does not like anyone to get close to her baby. Mother and calf will stay together for years. Camels can live as long as how many years? Did we find out? You're right, 40 or 50 years. So this is nice. This is a label of our camel, labeling features that help it to survive or that are unique. Its actual species name is called the Bactrian camel, or Camelus bactrionis. As you can see on the label here, this one is showing the 2 humps, which is a different variety than the 1 hump camel. All camels have long eyelashes, and you can imagine why. If they live on a desert, there's lots of windstorms or sandstorms. Those eyelashes would come in handy, wouldn't they? They also have slit nostrils. They have a woolly mane on the neck, head, and chin. They also have long wool fur on humps, back, and legs. They have long, thin tail with tufted end. And last but not least, how about those wide feet with 2 toes? Okay, so now we're learning even more things about this camel. Let's find out some more. The question is how can camels survive in deserts? And these are the different facts sharing with us how this animal has learned how to adapt. from all of the different thousands of years that it's existed on the earth? Well, we've already learned that it has thick fur and underwool, warmth at night, and it produces insulation against the sun in the day. So it's a type of clothing, isn't it? We use our clothing to protect us from the sun rays. Also, it has a fat stored in its hump, and that is its reserve supply of energy that keeps it going for those 2 months that it may be wandering around in the desert, or I guess if it's providing transportation to someone, because sometimes in the desert, that's what they use. The individuals there use the camel as transportation. It also has 2 rows of eyelashes, which protects it against the sand and also the sun. The nostrils can be closed to keep out the sand. It has the long, strong legs to carry heavy loads and bodies further away from sand. It has thick, leathery patches on the knees to protect it when it's resting on the hot sand. So it'll actually kneel down on its knees, just like you boys and girls can do if you want to rest for a few minutes. And last but not least, we have 2 more things. Broad, flat, leathery pads on the hooves to spread out the weight from walking on the sand. So it's kind of like tennis shoes. It also has concentrated urine to retain as much water as possible. So when it has to go to the bathroom, the pee that it has does not have much water in it. It's more ammonia and less water, which is a great survival skill to have for an adaptation if you're going to be out in the desert for 2 months. Now let's compare that to our desert plants. Let's find out how desert plants adapt in the heat so they try not to die. These are some of the features or structures that they have. They have waxy coverings. They have spines for their leaves. They have long roots. They have roots near the surface. They die back during the drought, but they can come back alive once there's some type of water supply. They also have fast-growing seeds, and they can store lots of water. So that helps our plants that live in the desert to survive those 120-degree days every day for 2 to 3 weeks on end, or sometimes up to a month. So this is going to show you the habitat, the terrain, the region that we call the desert region. This would be basically a visual of what you would see. You would see these types of plants, not a lot of grass, but sparse vegetation. The reason being is the plants that are there, they have to adapt to the heat and the drought, the lack of water, which makes it considered a desert. So some plants have horizontal root systems just below the surface. So this, for instance, if we were looking at this cactus, I think this one goes down. But if we were looking at more like this type, the roots would go out this way and try to absorb the water that is flowing not only next to it, but also a little bit further away than it. It says some plants have long tap roots, 7 to 10 meters deep to reach the groundwater. So that would be an example of this type here, that it goes down. It could go down 7 to 10 meters. So that could be over 20 feet down underground, trying to absorb the water that's not only at the different levels, but it wants to tap down to the water that is even down deeper in the soil. It also has small leaves or spines. They're glossy and waxy leaves, which all reduce water loss. It's like a water repellent, or it doesn't allow the water to evaporate. It protects those leaves, doesn't it? It traps that water in. Some plants store water in their roots, stems, leaves, or even in their fruit. These are called succulents. Can you say that with me, boys and girls? Succulents. Nice job. And just know that some seeds can remain dormant for many years. So all of these adaptations allow our plants in the desert to survive. Okay, so now we're going to learn a little bit more about desert animals and take that knowledge and try to compare and contrast how desert plants are different or similar to desert animals. So we only studied about camels, so I'm going to now explain to you how some of our other desert animals survive by reading this text to you. Desert animals are good at staying cool. Deserts are hot environments that get very little rain. So the creatures that call the desert home have developed physical and behavioral adaptations that help them deal with the heat and conserve water. Okay, so this is what our desert animals do. For you, the best way to cool off on a hot summer day is to jump in a pool. But how would you cool off if you lived in the desert, where daytime temperatures are blazing hot and water is hard to find? That's the problem that desert animals face. So desert animals would be like the small mammals, camels, and reptiles. They have all adapted or changed to survive in their hot, dry homes. Nighttime living, this is one of their adaptations. What's the best way to stay out of the sun? Well, you come out at night. Nighttime is a busy time for nocturnal desert animals. Can you say that word with me? Nocturnal. Nocturnal. Nocturnal is a word that describes an animal that is active at night and sleeps during the day. By coming out when the sun goes down, desert animals, like the scorpion, can hunt for hours in the cooler night air. Also, some animals might have big ears and light colors. So if you lived in the desert, you'd be cool if you had big ears. The big ears of desert animals are thin and filled with blood vessels. An animal's core body temperature is warm. So that's what's located by their heart and in their chest region. So it's warm, isn't it? That's where the body wants to maintain its heat. So to prevent overheating, blood vessels carry warm blood from the core to the exposed blood vessels of the ears, where heat can be released. Desert animals, like jackrabbits, can get rid of a lot of heat through their oversized ears. So now we've kind of specifically talked about jackrabbits. We've talked about the scorpion a little bit. And before this slide, we talked a lot about camels. So now if you want to stop for just a minute, stop this video, and then you and your partner can have a discussion, and by drawing 2 circles on your paper, draw a Venn diagram, and list whatever desert animal you want to compare to your desert plant. And then talk about the similarities between those two. Awesome. We'll see you in just a minute. Okay, welcome back. I hope you had a great discussion with you and your partner. The next thing we're going to do as our final review is we're going to dig a little deeper and really try to make sense out of our learning today. So we're going to use our knowledge of the leaf, just a typical leaf, and suggest how desert plants might conserve water with their leaves. So I've provided this information here to help you if you can't remember how desert plants conserve water. You can use these suggestions here as you share with your partner how desert plants have adapted to their environment in order to survive. You have about 2 to 5 minutes to have this discussion with your partner. I hope you have fun. See you in just a minute. Well, nice job, boys and girls. Today we have studied a lot about animal and plant adaptations. I hope that you're able to use this knowledge as you continue to learn more and more about different animals that are living in different habitats. Until next time, bye-bye.